Hi there everyone. Here's a video I've been wanting to make for some time now. A little overview of my pedal collection as of 2021. And a couple of these might be leaving here pretty soon, so just for my sake, so I can remember everything and, kind of catalog what I have at this point. Here we go. Most of these are fuzzes. I'm going to start with the non-fuzz pedals first. AB box, nothing special, works like it should. MXR Phase 100, this is one of the newer reissues. Most of these ones are of the newer variation. I got this because I know that Fu Manchu uses them, and I wanted something a little more versatile than the Phase 90. I like it. I mostly play with it in the first mode, like Fu Manchu does, but it's fun to play around with the different modes. Boss tuner, nothing much to say. This is your regular, standard, bottom of the line Dunlop Crybaby Wah. This is the second pedal I ever got, actually. Works fine. I wish I had a wah that... I don't really know how to word it, but it kind of cut through, I guess, is the way to say it. Because I mostly play with fuzz, and the wah can get a little buried. Either that or I don't know. It just doesn't quite sound the way that I would like it to. So maybe one of these days here I'll start looking into different wahs. Here's a full tone Deja Vibe. This is a clone of the Shin Univibe, which everyone knows. It's what Hendrix used. Your Robin Trower, a lot of those late 60s, 70s era guitarists use the Univibe, and that's what this is. It just has this speed knob here instead of a foot pedal to control it. I mostly play with it in the chorus selection and there's a vintage and modern switch over there on the left. I keep it in the vintage because I mostly just like it to sound Hendrixy, old school. A couple distortions. This is a DS1, just your straight up regular DS1. And then a Rat, which I definitely use the Rat more. It's a little sludgier. It has some heavier distortion capability. The DS1 is one that I've thought about getting rid of just because I hardly ever use it, and if I wanted to get another one, there is no shortage of DS1s out there. Then we get into the fuzzes. This is a build-your-own clone. I think they call it the Leeds Fuzz. It's a clone of the Univox Super Fuzz. And they call it the Leeds Fuzz because it's what Pete Townsend used on the Live at Leeds album and all that other earlier Who stuff. But I got this because of Fu Manchu. Fu Manchu influenced a lot of my guitar and pedal choices. I built this a few years back with one of my former science teachers. We built it together, and we must have built it correctly because it sounds exactly like it should. Definitely cuts through a little bit more than like an older Super Fuzz, based on what I've heard anyway. But that's still something I'd really like to get my hands on one day. Here's one of my newest additions. This is a Catlin bred Fuzzrite pedal. Apparently they collaborated with Mosley, Mosrite. They were the ones that originally made the Fuzzrite. Haven't really used this one too much. This is one of those pedals where, at least with what I've been able to find, it sounds good cranked all the way up, and I'm having a hard time getting other good sounds out of it, other than when the volume's totally maxed out. It's definitely a harsh, biting fuzz. I do like it. I just haven't... so far, I have not quite been able to get the sounds out of it that I wanted to. I mostly bought this because I was trying to emulate some of the Ron Ashton real early Stooges tones. And I know there's kind of debate over whether he used a Fuzzrite or a Tone Bender. I thought the Fuzz Right would get me there, and it does to a degree, but I don't know. I need to play around with that one a little bit more. Here's a Death by Audio Absolute Destruction. Love this pedal. Need to get a Fuzz War. That's on my list. But the Absolute Destruction is amazing. And it's very usable once you figure out how to kind of mess with the overload control. Because you can get some really cool swells with it if you play with that and your guitar's volume control. It sounds crazy. I really like keeping the overload control all the way off and then keeping the gain in the lower stages, because you get this really overblown kind of sputtering fuzz. I think that sounds really cool. That's my favorite way to use this pedal. Here's a Fender Blender. This is a reissue. This is another one that might be leaving at some point soon here, because a Fender Blender has been on my list for a very long time, but I just can't get it to sound good for what I like. It's very cool as like an octave fuzz. You can get some really cool octave effects with it, but I'm not the hugest fan of the sounds you get out of it. I can't really find a tone where I'm like, wow, like it blows me away. So this is another one that might be leaving. It's super cool to have. I feel like I could put the money into fuzzes that I would like a bit more than this one. But it's been cool to have. And never say never. Might decide to keep it, might not. We'll have to see. Here's a Behringer SF300, another clone of the, it's not really a clone of the Univox Super Fuzz. It's a clone of the Univox Super Fuzz, because this is a clone of the Boss FZ2, I think it is, which is basically a clone of the Univox Super Fuzz. I really like this pedal. It definitely sounds, to my ears, pretty much identical to the FZ2. And when I got this at like the tail end of them still being $30. They're definitely going up in price now, and I don't really know why. Maybe Behringer isn't producing them as rapidly anymore. But I really, really like this pedal. The boost function is very cool on this. Bit of a milder, not quite as fuzzy tone out of that one, but I really like it. It's definitely a heavier fuzz than this one. Here's another Catlin Bred pedal. This is the Sabra Cadabra. Not really a fuzz. It's more of a clone of the classic Tony Iommi Laney Supergroup and Rangemaster treble booster. It's kind of like those mixed into one. I love this. It totally nails the Sabbath tones. I especially like to take my Jazzmaster, which has P90 style pickups, and tune it down to C sharp standard, and that's when this thing really shines. It really shines when you have a setup similar to what Tony was using back in those early Sabbath days. It does take a bit of tinkering with the knobs, but you can definitely get some really cool tones out of this pedal. This is one of my favorites. Here is a Fuzz Face. I'm not quite sure when this is from, because there's a certain period of time where they didn't have the smiley face that said, well, in this case, this is a Dunlop, but, the older ones, it said Dallas Arbiter on the bottom. So I don't know if they didn't have that in the early 2000s or the more recent, like late 2000s, early 2010s. Either way, I really like this pedal. It kind of took me a while to figure out how to use a Fuzz Face. Like you kind of set where you want it to be when your guitar is on full blast. And then if you roll off the volume knob, you can get some clearer tones. But once I sort of figured that out, I love this pedal. I use it all the time, and I'll either stack it with another pedal and use this as like a boost, or just use my guitar's volume knob to control it. Really, the only time I like the fuzz is when both the knobs are all the way up, but it's still a great sounding fuzz. I really enjoy it. And then we get into the big muffs. Here's the double muff. I want to say this is a reissue of, I think it's a reissue of the Muff Fuzz, which is one of Electro Harmonix's earlier pedals. And you can switch between having one muff fuzz or two muff fuzzes in the double position. I think that's what this pedal is all about. I bought this, I found it really cheap. I'm not the hugest fan. I mean, it sounds good, but I don't have much use for it. So I think this is another one that it's time for it to go, because this is one of the earlier ones. They call it the first edition, and they're actually worth a little bit of money now, more than when I bought it. So I think this one's gonna be up for sale here pretty soon. Not because it's a bad pedal. I just I'm not a huge fan of how it sounds. I don't really need it, but it's cool. Here is the first pedal that I ever bought. This is one of the newer NYC Big Muffs. I got it. It's not the first pedal I ever bought. It's the first pedal I ever received. I got it as a birthday present. Shortly after I started playing guitar, I was in between this and a way huge swollen pickle. There's my dog coughing. And I decided to get the Big Muff. And I've been in love ever since. This is what started me being so obsessed with fuzz. This and listening to Fu Manchu records. That's what got me hooked. Love this pedal. It's a bit... I wish there was a bit more in the way of mids, but that's okay. That's why we have other Big Muff variations, which I'll get to right now. This is a Softtech Big Muff. This is one of the last ones that was made by Softtech. I believe this is a late 90s or very early 2000s model. I'm more of a fan of the green Russians, the tall font, and the bubble font, and the Civil War muff. Love the Civil War muff. But this one's cool. It doesn't sound all that different from your bubble font Big Muffs. In fact, I have a Green Russian, the new reissue of the Green Russian, over here to my left that I'll talk about in a second. And there's really not much difference in sound to me between this one and that one. But this one was super cool to have. I found this at a Guitar Center, and I kind of had to have it. It was I think it was the second Big Muff that I acquired. And then we'll move over here real quick to these four. These are all of the modern reissues of the Big Muff. We've got the Triangle, the Ram's Head, the Op Amp, and the Green Russian. In order of favorite to least favorite, my favorite is definitely the Ram's Head. And then I think I'd go Triangle, then I think I'd go Green Russian, and then I'd go Op Amp. I really don't use the Op Amp all that much, which isn't to say I hate how it sounds, but these two are by far the best sounding two of these four. The Ram's Head I use most, probably because I'm such a huge J Mascis fan. As you can see, the Ram's Head and the Triangle are set pretty much identically. And I guess the Green Russian kind of is too. That's funny. But yeah, these two are my favorite, the Ram's Head by far. And I know they made that, I forget what they call it, the bigger pedal that looks more like the Civil War muff. I have not gotten that one because I've heard that it's pretty much the same circuit as this one, and it's not actually a clone of the Civil War muff. which is why I have not tried to acquire it. There's not really much of a point if it's just this pedal in a different enclosure. And then finally, we move on to the last one and my favorite of the bunch, a companion Fuzz Wah. Now, I always get the names confused. I don't know if this is an FY2 or an FY6. I think the FY6 is the Super Fuzz, actually. So I think this is an FY2. I found this for a really cheap price on Marketplace, and it was close-ish by. It was like 2 hours away, and for the price, I had to go get it. The only thing wrong with it is it's missing the foot pad, but that's okay because no one uses these for the wah anyway. But everything works. This is another one that I had to get because of my obsession with Fu Manchu. You know, this is the pedal that Scott Hill used in the early days of the band to get his sound. And a lot of people say that it's no different than a Super Fuzz. I disagree. I think this one is a lot more heavy on the bottom end. I think it's... I don't know how to describe it. The Super Fuzz sounds sharper to me. This one sounds a little bit more bass heavy and smoother, which smoother relative speaking. This thing is still super harsh. If I had to get rid of everything else and keep one, this is the one I would keep. This is like, I might go so far as to say it's my favorite pedal of all time. I just love it. I love playing it every single time that I play with it. And it's for me, it's the pedal holy grail. And I'm super stoked that I actually have one. And that's about it. I'm sure I'm not done collecting pedals. I'm sure I'll be collecting them for the rest of my life. But that's what I've got at this point now. From ever since I started playing guitar back about 10 years ago at this point, this is what I've acquired. Hope you enjoyed the collection. Like I said, some of these are going up for sale here pretty soon. And we'll see if I get any cool acquisitions after getting rid of those. Thanks for watching.